Today, we're digging into the blueprint of a brand. We're going to break down that whole structured journey. The one that takes a simple thought and turns it into a powerful, recognizable symbol. So let's get right into it. It really is the big question, isn't it? How does that happen? It can honestly feel like magic. You see a logo, a color, and bam, you instantly connect with the company's entire story. But here's the thing, it's not magic. It's a deliberate, creative, and actually a very structured process that we're about to walk through together. So where does it all begin? Right here. Everything, and I really do mean everything, starts with a single, clear subject. This could be anything, a new coffee shop you're dreaming up, a tech startup, even just a personal project. This is that foundational concept that the whole visual identity is going to be built on. Now, that word structured is so important. Yeah, creativity is obviously essential, but it really thrives when it has a framework. This whole thing isn't about some chaotic mess. It's about following a blueprint, a plan with specific steps that guide that initial spark toward a polished and really effective design. Okay, so the very first phase is all about divergence. Think of it like a creative explosion, a big bang of ideas. The goal here is just to get as many concepts out as you possibly can. This is where you let your imagination just run totally wild, with zero judgment, zero criticism. So what does this explosion actually look like? Well, it usually breaks down into three key things. First, you build a mood board. You're collecting images, colors, textures, anything that captures the feeling of the brand. Then you just start sketching, getting all those rough logo ideas down on paper. And this is crucial, you review those early thoughts with a mentor or a collaborator to get a fresh pair of eyes and some really valuable feedback. And what's so important here is the mindset you've got to have at this stage. It is all about quantity over quality. You're just exploring every single possible path. It's so critical that you don't filter yourself yet. Right now, your so-called bad ideas are just as valuable as the good ones because every single one of them helps shine a light on the right way forward. Okay, so you've done it. You've created this mountain of sketches and ideas. Now what? Well, this is where we start to bring in some structure. We move from just pure creativity to actual crafted design by applying a set of fundamental principles. But before we dive into them, let's just be super clear on what we mean here. Visual design principles. They're basically the grammar of art. They're the universal rules that help us organize all the visual stuff in a way that's both effective and, looks good. They're what turn chaos into a real composition. And these are the absolute must-haves in your toolkit. Color? That's your emotional powerhouse. It sets the mood, it builds recognition. Shape gives the brand its unique, memorable silhouette. And scale? Well, that's how you tell the viewer's eye where to look, creating emphasis and a clear visual hierarchy. Nailing these three is what takes a simple sketch and turns it into a potential brand identity. All right, so let's just pause and take stock for a second. You've gone through that whole creative explosion, you've filled pages with sketches, and now you have dozens, maybe even hundreds of these raw concepts just sitting there. And that, right there, leads us to what is probably the single biggest challenge of this entire process. With so many possibilities in front of you, how in the world do you choose? How do you find that one path that's perfect for your brand? Well, that's where this next phase comes in, refinement. If that first part was all about divergence, going super wide, this part is all about convergence. It's about narrowing your focus and making really deliberate, strategic choices. And you can really see that shift right here. You're moving from a state of broad, kind of unfocused exploration to a single intentional direction. It's the process of taking all of that raw, creative energy and channeling it into one focused, refined concept that actually has some real potential. And that brings us to the home stretch, the final, most focused stage of this entire journey. This is where you take that single path you've chosen and you just hone it. You perfect it. You make it truly powerful. This quote really just nails it. The time for exploration is over. You've made your choice. Now, every single decision, every little tweak you make to your logo and sketches is all about strengthening and clarifying that one chosen identity. And the key thing to remember here is you're not starting over. Nope. This is all about finishing strong. This is the detail work, fiddling with curves, testing colors, and just making sure every single element works together perfectly to communicate one clear, powerful idea.
And there it is, just like that. From a totally blank page, through a storm of creative ideas, guided by design principles, and then sharpened by focused refinement, you have a final identity. You now have the blueprint for turning pretty much any idea into a memorable brand.
But creating the visual identity, that's really the end of one process, but it's the beginning of a whole new one. Because now that your brand has a face, the real question becomes, what story are you going to empower it to tell the world?